our next speaker, Sophia Hampton. And Sophia is a fourth year, yes, hold your applause, just a minute, fourth year Public Affairs and Environmental Studies double major. She will present the results of her capstone project, for which she researched how environmental advocacy groups and policymakers can realize the support of rural voters for environmental policy. Sophia, take it away.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So today I will be discussing my capstone project, which was a literature review looking at understanding and engaging with rural perspectives to increase support for environmental policy. So why is this an issue? Well, rural voters are one of the groups least likely to support climate action in the US. However, their views are overrepresented in the federal government due to the structure of our Senate and the Electoral College. Despite their behavior on the ballot, they tend to express pro-environmental attitudes. They also face extreme and distinct risks of the climate crisis due to their proximity to infrastructure, existing health and wealth disparities, and their reliance upon agriculture as for economic reasons. They also contribute to land management and the implementation of certain policies, so their buy-in of these policies can only help make them more effective. So how did we get here? What's going on? So climate change has become increasingly politicized. Rural voters are becoming increasingly Republican, and Republicans are less likely to believe in climate change than Democrats. There's also something called place-based resentment, which occurs when members of a certain place feel resentment towards members who do not live in the same place as them. And this is very strong among rural communities, based on feelings of being left out, misunderstood, having differences in values. And this exists for urban people in general, as well as government officials specifically. So not wanting a lot of government intervention within their communities. In a similar vein, we see a strong sentiment of anti-intellectualism, which is a distrust of scientists and intellectuals and their information, which is especially relevant to climate change, considering how much information we know is a result of the scientific process. So based on my literature review, I found 8 studies that are helpful in thinking about how we can better engage with rural voters in order to increase their support for environmental policy. This first finding is around framing, so how we talk about environmental policy. Instead of using traditionally environmentalist talking points and talking about these sort of conceptual or broad environmental benefits, rural communities tend to understand and perceive environmental policy better when we frame them around tangible or material impacts and benefits, especially around financial and health benefits. Any language that has an existing strong partisan association is going to be less effective in gaining support because it's going to, again, have that association with a political party that is not typically aligned with the rural voters. The second aspect of this that we can look at is the source of that information. And so we see that increased trust in environmental information when the source is familiar and from an established relationship. So if we're able to understand who are the current disseminators of environmental issues in rural communities, we can understand how we can better use those to communicate about environmental policies. So local ranchers and farmers are often trusted sources within communities, but really a goal to maintain and create a relationship with rural communities is the key here. So instead of coming in and just dumping all this information about environmental policy, really prioritizing a dialogic approach is the key here. Lastly, we need to look at what types of policies are most favored. And there isn't a lot of research around this area, but renewable energy initiatives are generally favored. Anything, again, with these tangible benefits, especially around soil and water quality or health benefits, financial incentives, all of these things that rural communities see as genuinely beneficial to their own lives and to their own communities is going to be more effective than anything else. So a lot more research is needed in this area. There was certainly literature that I was able to pull off of to understand and answer my question. However, the urban-rural dimension of environmental justice is still under-researched, especially thinking about how that compounds with race and class. And so this is certainly an area where we want to see more research, more scholarship in order to better improve our environmental policies and improving environmental justice for all people. Thank you so much.